So here is a tutorial for the twist headband using Tunisian stitches that I've been showing in my feed. I used Impeccable yarn, loops and thread in Fern, and the sugar and cream in hot orange. Okay, for this project you'll need 2 contrasting yarns. I used a medium weight number 4 yarn, but I think a chunky weight number 5 would be nice too. I used a sage green, which is called Fern, in the Impeccable yarn by Loops and Threads, found at Michael's. And then I used a hot orange, which is in sugar and cream yarn from Yarn Inspirations. You'll also need a double crochet hook, which I've linked in my bio. If you'd like to purchase the exact one I have, it came as a set. It has different sizes on both ends, but they're just negligible for this project, and that's fine. You'll also need an embroidery needle as well. So we'll start with our sage green, and you'll just make a slip knot and add it to your hook. It doesn't matter which end you start with. And once you have that loaded up, you're going to chain 16 stitches or whatever number of stitches you want in order to create the width of your headband. I chose 16 for this weight of yarn, but you can decide how many stitches you want to use. Okay, so once you have your chain 16, you will turn the chain over, and we're going to use those horizontal stitches in the back of each of the chain stitches. We don't want that first one because we already have a loop on our hook, so we want to use that second one, and we're just going to pass the crochet hook through and pull up a loop, and then go in the next one and pull up a loop, and we're going to continue to use those back hump stitches or the back horizontal line stitch that's in the chain to load up our crochet hook with the first color. So this is just our cast on. If you do a nice loose chain, you should be able to load these up pretty quickly. I unfortunately did a little bit of a tight chain at the beginning, and it's a little bit harder to get this fat crochet hook under the stitch. But if you chain nice and loose, you should have no trouble getting the cast on stitches. Now make sure you get that very last one, which is a little bit tough for me to get on this one because I was too tight when I was chaining. But once you get that last one on, you will have your cast on in the green, and you want to make sure you have the number that you intended. I wanted 16, so I have my 16 stitches, and I'm ready to add the orange. Okay, so we have our first 16 stitches cast on to the crochet hook. Now we're going to rotate the crochet hook and add the orange yarn by making a slip knot in the orange and adding it to the opposite end of the crochet hook. So now we have 17 stitches on, which we obviously only wanted 16. So we need to pass that first. Oh, notice too that the yarn is trailing on opposite ends. We have orange on one end and we have the green trailing on another one. So what we want to do first is we want to pull that slip knot of orange through the first loop of green. We only do this on this first row. Then yarn over, pull through 2. And we want to, see how I pulled through 2 stitches? Now we're going to yarn over and pull through the next 2 stitches and yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to do this, got the wrong yarn, yarn over, pull through 2, and we want to pull yarn over and pull through 2 the entire duration of this row. So continue to yarn over, pull through 2, and one thing you'll notice is when you get to the end of the row, that last loop on the crochet hook is going to be very loose, but that's fine. We don't even use that one right now. We won't use it until we start with the green thread. So now what we need to do is we need to reload the crochet hook with our 16 stitches. And what we're going to do in this case is just a simple Tunisian stitch. We're going to use those front vertical stitches in the contrasting color and just pass the crochet hook through them and pull up a loop. And we'll just cast on those 16 stitches again in now the orange color, and then we will rotate and start down with the green color. So once you have those 16, remember to look for that very last vertical stitch so that you get that one loaded on too, otherwise your panel won't be rectangular. So count again and make sure you have 16 stitches. And now, since we have orange loaded up, we're going to rotate the crochet hook. The orange is loaded. We're going to rotate the crochet hook and work back now with the green. You'll notice that each color gets worked in 2 rows. One to work down the crochet hook and then one to build it back up. So now on this row, we want to yarn over, pull through 1 to sort of lock it in place, then yarn over and pull through 2. So I pull through 2 stitches and yarn over and pull through 2 the remaining length of this row. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And again, just a reminder that when you get to the very end of the loops on the hook, you're going to notice that that one is very loose. Again, we don't use that one until we turn, so you don't have to worry about how loose that first one is, because we skip over that when we begin to reload the hook in the alternating colors. So now we want to use those orange vertical stitches and pull up loops to cast on our 16 loops in the green color in order to complete this part of the pattern. So get those 16 back on. Always check that you have the 16 so you have a nice rectangle for the headband. And once you get those 16 on, we'll rotate and work with the next color. Again, remembering to get that very last one, which might not always look vertical when you're casting on since you dropped it at the beginning. Okay, so now we have our 16 stitches in green, which means it's time to work with the orange. We rotate the crochet hook, and again we're going to start working down the first row in orange, which we yarn over and pull through 1, then yarn over and pull through 2, and continuing to yarn over and pull through 2 the remaining length of this row. And we're going to continue to do this until we create the panel in the length that we need. So you can decide based on the head circumference. Okay, so we're going to continue to alternate in colors until we create a rectangular panel that is our head circumference. I decided to do about 21 inches and then decided to start binding off. And you're going to bind off, instead of loading up the crochet hook in the last color, just go through that vertical stitch and then pull that stitch through the existing loop on the crochet hook to sort of create a slip stitch, and continue to do that to sort of bind off those last stitches, and that will complete the final row. So just pass through that vertical stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the existing loop that's on the crochet hook. And we'll do that the entire distance of the last row to give a nice finished edge to that last row of Tunisian stitches. So we're getting towards the end, remembering to get that last vertical stitch right there, and then we're all set. So once you get to that point, you have a nice finished slip stitch edge, and we're going to leave nice long tails of both colors, about probably 8 inches is plenty, and then knot it off on both ends to secure those tails, and then we're ready to seam the ends together. Okay, so at this point we have 2 long tails, and we have a panel that's about 21 inches by 4 inches in contrasting colors. I like to choose my favorite of the 2 and plan to make that the primary way in which I'll wear it. Now, in order to seam it closed, you can either make just a circular headband and do a simple seam that direction or in that direction, depending on what color you like to be your outside of the panel, keeping the nicer side on the inside. So I'm going to use a twist, make a twist headband, and I like the green the most, so I'm keeping that on the inside. And I'm going to fold both ends and sort of sandwich them together to create the twist. Now we're going to have a small seam on this side, so it's not going to be as pretty as the green side, but it'll work for what we want if you wanted to reverse it. So now we just want to stitch these 4 sides together so that it makes a nice twist when we turn the headband inside out. So use your embroidery needle, load up one of the tails of the yarn. You can use both if you really want to make it secure. I found that the green was long enough that I just chose the green, and just pass it through that first row of stitches on each of the 4 sides that we sandwiched together. And I found that going all the way down and then coming back, if you cut a long enough tail, you can just use one color. If you didn't leave a long enough tail, you can also thread up the other color and start sewing with that tail too. So I made 2 passes up and down with the embroidery needle and sewed that closed. Then you'll want to secure those ends, tie them up, and fasten in the tails so that you don't see them. Okay, so we're just going to knot off the yarns, cut them a little bit shorter, weave in those ends, and then just turn the headband inside out, and you can see your nice twist that you made. And it still looks fine reversible if you wanted to wear it with the orange on the outside, even though I chose the green to be on the outside. It's still pretty, but it does have a little bit more of a seam showing than the green, which dominates in this case. So there is your twist headband using a Tunisian stitch and a double crochet hook. Again, if you're interested in more of my patterns, you can see them in my bio. Thank you.